Everybody have a score? All right, take another minute. I don't want to put any stress on you. Yes.
Do you automatically default to A+ if you did, like when you started talking?
You wouldn't be the only one. Okay, let me just ask one question. How many people scored 99 or below? Okay, so I would say not even 5% of this audience. Okay. My average group, and I don't care whether you talk Wall Street litigators, whether you talk NASA engineers, third grade teachers from Denver, is 5% type B, 95% type A. Okay. You've got to remember that type A is a learned behavior characteristic. We are not born as type A's. We learn it from this stressful, toxic society. And so if that means that it can be modified as part of this overall impact of stress that I've been talking about. So internal stress really plays a role. Now, I don't want you to think that being a type A personality is automatically going to compromise your health, in particular your cardiovascular health. But there are some characteristics of type A's that can cause you a problem, at least from a heart standpoint. If you scratch a type A and you find an angry and hostile person, anger and hostility is a key factor in producing a heart attack. Anger and hostility is a major risk in producing a heart attack, okay? In fact, I'll tell you a quick story about anger and hostility. There was a married couple celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary with a special dinner. And the husband said to the wife, "Wow, 60 years, I can hardly believe it. I can hardly believe that we made it." And he said, "I just don't know how we did it." And she said, "Well, I know exactly how we did it, and I'll show you." And she went into the bedroom, she came back out with a wooden box, and she opened it up, and in the box were 2 crocheted dolls and $50,000 in cash. He said, "What's this all about?" She said, "When the day we got married, my mother pulled me aside and said to me, there will be times when this guy will be a jerk, and you're going to want to get angry and hostile with him. But instead of getting angry and hostile, I want you to crochet a doll." He said, "Well, 60 years, 2 dolls doesn't seem too bad." He said, "Okay, I understand about the dolls. Now tell me about the cash." She said, "Oh, that's from selling dolls." Anger and hostility. Social isolation. Remember we talked about not delegating, not giving up any authority, not giving up any work because you didn't trust that other people could do that. Well, sometimes that happens to the point where you are socially isolated, and that is a trigger for a coronary event. Depression. If you scratch a type A and you find someone that is actually depressed, that is a major, major, major risk for having a heart attack, and we're only now coming to understand it. It's a little bit like osteoporosis. Everybody knows an older woman that's had osteoporosis that has fallen down, broken her hip, and her life changed at that point. And that's what happened to an aunt of mine, and I was using her story in a presentation that I was giving, and when the presentation was over, a physician in the back of the room came up and said, "I enjoyed your remarks, but would you allow me to make a correction?" I said, "Of course." He said, "I work with older women that have osteoporosis. They do not fall down and break their hips. They break their hips and fall down. They break their hips and fall down." That's a totally different picture. It's just like depression. We used to say the woman had a heart attack, now she's depressed. Well, of course she's depressed. She just had a heart attack. It doesn't work that way. She gets depressed first, and the depression actually contributes as a trigger to the heart attack. This is so important. I predict that within 5 years, people that score highly on a depression test will be treated the same way people are today that score highly on a cholesterol test. That is immediate intervention. And finally, constant connection. Technology was supposed to save us. We were supposed to have the Jetsons robots in our house by now, cleaning. We were supposed to have smart computers that did our checkbooks automatically and did our scut work at work so we could think on a higher plane. And it hasn't worked out that way. All that's happened is we are connected by this technological umbilical cord to all kinds of devices that have changed the balance of our life. We used to have a work life and a home life. Now we just have a work life. because you can work from anywhere 24/7, and most of us do. We're connected all the time. It's not healthy. I got off the airplane yesterday here in Austin. You hear cell phones go on. You hear computers go on. You hear Sky pagers go on. You see a guy talking to the wall. You think Bluetooth are homeless. You know, it's just crazy. And there's nothing worse than email. Okay, you guys have given up at least a half a day here today. You're going to go back to email this afternoon. You're going to have 50 emails. 10% perfectly spam, but the rest of them will reorient your energy, will reorient your priorities. We're constantly jumping, we're constantly reacting with that email, I think email is insidious because of the fact that we've all been overloaded with it. Tell you a story about email, again involving a married couple. These guys were celebrating their 10th wedding anniversary. They lived in Minneapolis. So they wanted to celebrate at the same hotel where they had honeymooned in Florida. And so because of the schedule, the husband was going to go down a day before and the wife was going to follow. So he went down, he checked into the hotel, got the honeymoon suite, everything about it was just as he remembered it. And with the exception was that they had a computer in the room now. So he said, well, as long as there's a computer, I think I'll shoot my wife off an email. So he did. Unfortunately, he had the wrong address. So the email did not go to Minneapolis. It went to Houston, Texas, to the home of a 71-year-old woman returning from the funeral of her husband, a pastor. She walked in the door with her son. The son peeled off to the kitchen to get something to eat. She went to the computer room because a lot of people send condolences by email these days. The son heard a scream and a thud. She had just fainted dead away. So he went in and revived her, and then he took a look at the email, and this is what it said. To my darling wife, I know you are surprised to hear from me. They have computers here now, and you are allowed to send emails to your loved ones. I have just arrived and been checked in. I see that everything has been prepared for your arrival tomorrow. And look forward to seeing you then. Hope your journey is as uneventful as mine was. P.S. Sure is hot down here. Okay. All right, so we know what the goal is. We know, and we're backing up from that to find out what the source of stress is. And now we want to take some action. What can we do to help people produce what's called a relaxation response in both mind and body that allows us to handle the stress in our lives more effectively, more efficiently? There are some physical things that can be done. There are some mental things. So here's just a few suggestions. Anything that to do with deep breathing can help, whether it's Pilates, Tai Chi, stretching, yoga, and deep breathing itself helps. And it's a simple and easy thing to do. Take a breath right now. It's in your chest. That's called constrictive breathing. It doesn't help with a relaxation response. I want to get you to breathe differently for a short period of time. Take a breath in through your nose and push out your stomach. Let your diaphragm fall, push out your stomach. Hold it for a few beats. Pull your stomach back in like there's a string from your belly button to your spine. Let the air out of your lips like you're whistling for 5 beats. That's all there is to it. In through the nose, stomach gets pushed out, stomach comes back in, out through the lips, 5 beats. You don't need to join a club, you don't need special shoes, you don't need a uniform. You can do this for 5 minutes a day, once or twice a day, in your kitchen, in your car, in your office. It's extremely effective in terms of bringing about the relaxation response. I worked with a group at Boeing, 38,000 engineers, most of whom were on the 787 project, very stressful. We actually built a room in the engineering building that was soundproof with comfortable furniture. People would sign in for 10 minutes at a time to go in and do deep breathing. It worked out so well, we built a second room for it in the other end of the building. So Turn off the TV news. I do a lot of work with television, but my feeling is that the national evening news is not about news, it's about a perverted form of entertainment, much akin to watching a wreck on a freeway. You just simply can't take your eyes off of it. So we've done numbers of groups now where we just said, you know, we've got you for 7 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks. We've done them in corporate settings, and we said, you know, let's get as much as we can from newspapers. And I've got you for 6 weeks. You want the New York Times in the morning, I'll get it for you. But don't turn on the national evening TV news. That's reported. That's the #1 thing that we get a response when we do exit interviews, that people say that's made the biggest difference in terms of managing their stress. And regular exercise. The key is, you know, when we talk about exercise for your heart, we talk about aerobic, you know, where's your training rate, you know, what's a prescription for exercise. From a stress standpoint, we don't care what you do, as long as it is done on a regular basis, okay? Regularity seems to be the key. So, and when I say regularity, I'm talking about 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I mean, we're not just talking about 1 or 2 days. It just doesn't cut it from a stress management standpoint. If you want to have regular exercise, then I would suggest to you 2 things. The first is get a partner. You will never be so faithful to exercise on your own as you are with a partner. I'll give you an example. I live in the Seattle area. The winters can be rainy, not usually so cold, but rainy. But this last winter was terrible. And I get up early to exercise. My alarm goes off at 5. I'm out taking a jog by 5:30. And the alarm went off at 5. The rain was horizontal. I could hear it pelting the windows. The guy on the radio said, it's 38 degrees. Better wear your gloves. And I was under a down comforter. And I said, I'm not going. I'm just not going. I mean, who in the world would go? I'm just not going. Well, then I remembered I have a partner. I can't call his house at 5 o'clock. He's got little kids. So I had to get dressed. I went down to the corner. I met him. We took our jog. I was very happy that we had done it, but I never would have gotten out of bed if it were up to me. Okay, you have a partner. Second thing is keep a journal. Put on your calendar when you exercise. When we try to keep it in our mind, we give ourselves way too much credit for exercise that never took place. This is a good history, and it's a good motivator.